Okay guys, we're going to start our vegan Thanksgiving dinner by putting this plant-based roast that I got from Whole Foods into the oven with some vegetable stock. I'm going to be using plenty of Smart Balance butter along with some onions to start my green bean casserole. I've melted down some butter and I'm just adding a whole medium diced onion to that butter to go ahead and cook down and get that transparent look that I'm going for before I move on to adding my flour and vegetable stock to create this yummy gravy for my green bean casserole. Now that my onions are cooked down, I am adding in about 5 tablespoons of regular all-purpose flour. And while I add that flour in, I'm just going to stir around the onions so that they can continue to cook, as well as get the flour really well incorporated in there and it can begin to brown as well. I use this gravy in place of any of the cream of mushroom or the cream of chicken or cream of celery I think some people use in their green bean casserole. I use this gravy that I'm making right now in place of those so that I can keep this casserole vegan. Now I'm adding in some salt and I'm going to be adding in some pepper, and I'm just going to let this cook down a little bit longer, and then once the flour is browned a little bit more, we'll start adding in our stock. Now we're going to be adding in our vegetable stock. I do use organic vegetable stock, and while I pour that in, this is kind of eyeballing it. I don't have an exact measurement for it, so I just pour it in until it looks thick enough. But while I'm pouring in the stock, I actually stir around the onions and the gravy, and it's going to look really, really clumpy when you first start putting it in. As you guys can see here, it looks like, it doesn't look like it's going to be a really good gravy, but if you just keep stirring and just keep stirring in your vegetable stock at the same time, it's going to cook down and it's going to make a really nice thick gravy, and the flour is going to spread out and get incorporated with the onions and the rest of the stock, so it's not going to end up being clumpy at all. It's just going to be like a smooth consistency gravy with the onions along in there. While I am letting this gravy simmer down, I go ahead and put my pan into the oven with some Smart Balance butter in there and let that butter melt. And then once it's melted, I add in, this is actually 6 cans of whole green beans along with the gravy that I just made, and I just mix that in together inside that inside that casserole dish, and then I add the crispy onions to the top of it and put it back in the oven to finish for about 15 minutes. While I was making my gravy for my green bean casserole, I went ahead and started boiling my sweet potatoes with the skin on. I washed them really well and then boiled them. Once they were tender, I ran them under some cold water. And I don't know if you guys know or not, but once you do that, the skins actually pull right away from the meat on the inside. The heat and the cold together makes that pull apart, so it just opens right up and the skins just peel right off like this, so you don't have to go through the hassle of peeling them before you cook them, because sweet potatoes are a very hard potato. So after I got them peeled, I put them in the same boiler that I cooked them down in. I'm going to add in here some Smart Balance butter, and I'm going to add some cinnamon, and you guys can see I'm not really measuring it, I'm just sprinkling it in. And I'm also going to use the pumpkin pie spice because it has cinnamon, nutmeg, and the allspice in it, so it has the flavors that I'm looking for. And I add some cane sugar, and then I add this casserole back to a casserole dish that has been warming up in the oven with some butter. Oh, and I forgot to say I add a little splash of vanilla, and then I finish it off in the oven for about 15 minutes. And here is my completed Thanksgiving meal. It's all vegan. It has the roast, the sweet potato casserole without the marshmallows, the green bean casserole with just the onions on the top, and mashed potatoes and a yeast roll. And I always like to finish it off with something sweet. So I picked up this pumpkin spice cheesecake from the Whole Food store, and I'm mixing it with this, putting a dollop of this True Whip right on the top of it, and that makes for a delicious after Thanksgiving meal dessert. And no animals were harmed in the making of this meal, which I truly appreciate. You guys let me know what you think below. Thanks.